Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We're going to learn the Maimer of 40 years ago, Parshas Kisave, this week's Parsha, and it's also, as it's on the title page, Shabbos Selichos. This year we have two Shabbosim before Rosh Hashanah because Rosh Hashanah is on Tuesday, so Monday night and Tuesday, and therefore we'd have to have a minimum of 4 days. The Rebbe actually spoke about it in the Fabrengen, that it's not just by chance, but it's something that's also increases and adds something special, but that's for another time. Let's learn the Maimer. Maimer gives us extra strength, and like last week's Maimer, the Rebbe actually speaks about how this is pertinent to each and every one of us, always, etc. And it's our gift from the Rebbe that he gave us with this inspiration and strength to grow from strength to strength, persevere, overcome challenges, etc. Vehaya kisavei el haaretz asher havaya lekecha neisin l'chonachlo v'yirishto v'shavta bo. So the Maimer begins with the first verse of the Parsha, and it shall be when you come to the land which the Lord your God is giving you as a heritage, and you take it as a heritage, you inherit it, and you dwell there. We know how the Rabbeim, our leaders, they glean from this several lessons, and many of them are Amorim, and several of them are already in print. The Rebbe said this 40 years ago. Now there's even more. Mahu shebetchila haposuk emer al Eretz Yisrael neisen l'chonachlo loshen matona. That if you look carefully at this verse, in the beginning it says regarding the land of Israel that God is giving it to you as a heritage. Therefore, it's a gift, loshen matona, something which is being given. Then afterwards, subsequently, it says, and you shall inherit it, which is the terminology of an inheritance. As is, we understand that there's a great difference between a gift and an inheritance. An inheritance is not dependent on anything. It is owned automatically. It comes automatically. Now, therefore, an inheritor, whoever it may be, any individual inheritor, inherits everything without any interruption. It's theirs. They are the owners. Even if it has to go to probate, even if it has to go whatever it has to do, it doesn't make a difference. There is an owner. The owner is the one who inherits. A gift, you need someone to give it to you. If they give it, then it's yours. So a gift is dependent on a different person who gives the gift. And especially since the verse here says that God is giving to you the chol haneisen by Yofen Neisen, the Talmud tells us that somebody who gives is generous. That means that whoever gives with a good eye. It means it's given, but hainu shatoli b'haneisen. But that is the generosity. It's dependent on the giver. Hu kipsak ha'alocha bepeil b'shas. And like the actual halachic ruling in the Talmud, Yerusha ein lahefsik u'matona yesh lahefsik. An inheritance is automatic, and there's never a time where there wasn't an owner to this and there wasn't a question of ownership. Whereas gifts can have conditions, if you will gain ownership, if you won't gain ownership, and there's all kinds of things that a gift could sometimes have to be returned if something happens, if a condition why the gift was given, whereas inheritance is always belonging to the person. So now we have to understand, how does this come into going into the Holy Land? Going into the Holy Land, when you come into the land, like it says in the verse, There are both of these ideas, the idea of a gift and the idea of an inheritance. The Kivan Shatoira hi nitzchis. And since the Torah is eternal, it's forever, it's pertinent at every moment. It's not so. It wasn't just something for when the Jewish people at that moment, they only went into the land of Israel for the first time once, but it's an eternal Torah. Hainu shehiro nitzchis. Therefore, there's an eternal lesson regarding this. Move on. Shemi bezin yonim eli yeshiro nitzchis. Get out the yellow highlighters here. From this, we understand that from both of these ideas, there is an eternal, everlasting lesson and instruction in the way each and every individual serves God for all time. And especially since this is regarding the coming into the land of the Holy Land, which is a very fundamental principle in Torah. And then we're also talking about when this coming into the land, particularly it's speaking about after they took it over and they already dwell in the land, inhabit the land, after they had Sheva Shekov, Sheva Shecholku, as it's referred to, the 7 years that it took them to conquer and the 7 years that it took them to divide it up. So this is talking about when they're already settled. And even in more specific detail, this is regarding the mitzvah of the bringing the first fruits. It's a very important mitzvah, which comes right at the beginning of the way they will serve God when they enter the land. And like it says elsewhere, when you come to the land, Sheishonim Tizra Sodecha. When you come into the land, for 6 years you shall plant your fields, and for 6 years you shall prune and plant your vineyards. Goimer. From this we take out that this we understand that the ultimate purpose is when you go into the land that for 6 years you will work the land, that this is the ultimate goal and purpose of going into the land. In other words, we call this the mitzvahs atluyos ba'aretz. These are the mitzvahs that are dependent on living there and that you perform with the produce and elevate the world by doing this in the land of the Holy Land. And immediately, right when things start growing, that through the serving God with the 6 years that you'll plant, that you'll sow, immediately the mitzvah of Bikurim begins, and it comes from bringing the first of the fruit of the earth. So right away, when the first year, they could already bring those fruits. Now this is all provided that they got trees that they inherited that were already more than 4 years old, etc. But we don't have to get into it. It's just right away. Now, the mitzvah of bringing the first fruits, it's not just bringing the fruits, but there are the parts of it that are there to show our appreciation and our devotion and focus on God. There's also the telling of the story and the reading of the passages that have to be read when the first fruits are brought, thanking God for bringing us to the land, taking us out of Egypt and bringing us to the land and giving us the produce and being thankful for that. Like it says, you read, I'm telling today to the Lord my God. Parenthetically, when we have to tell the story about leaving Egypt, part of the passages of the Haggadah on Pesach come from this week's Parsha, because this is how God says to tell the story, not in the context of the Pesach Seder, but This is part of it. Anyway. וגם המצווה של אחרי זה כהי בעניין הבא גם כן על ידי אביידוס האדומו מצווה וידוי מייסר. Then the next passage in the parsha after the mitzvah of the first fruits is the mitzvah of the confession and thanking God when you give the tithes. So that's also connected with working the ground, working the mitzvahs that are done with the agricultural mitzvahs. The siyuma and the last piece of the beginning of the parsha, which is really technically the third, right at the end of Sheni. It's really during the week we read till here, but on Shabbos it'll be read as the first two pieces. So the end of that is then the idea that we ask God to look down from your holy abode, from the heaven, and the rest of the verse is going that and bless us, bless your nation. And then it says, you shall guard and keep and do the mitzvahs, do them. Rashi says, Baskul mevarachta avavos haveso bikurim hayom tishna l'shana haba. The heavenly voice blesses him. It says, you brought the first fruits today, may you repeat this the coming year. So may you have continued bounty and good things. The Mikol Zeh move on. Gedel Malas Parsha Zu Shetchiloso Hu Inyan Haknisa La'oretz Veveze. From all these great details and these fundamental principles, this all shows the great potent how important this mitzvah is, and this and so because of moving Gedel Milas Parsha Zu, so this shows us how important this whole passage is. The beginning of it is that we go into the Holy Land, and we're getting it in both these ways, in both these fashions, in the way of an inheritance and the way of a gift. From this also we understand even more the absolute necessity that we learn a lesson, the eternal lesson, the everlasting lesson that's so special. In every single individual service of God, every Israelite serving God forever has to learn something and gain strength from this, and the Rebbe is going to point this out. Here's the crux of the explanation. Again, which is already like we did it last week. We already have it here, the Rebbe right at the beginning, mentioning it's going to be several more times, pointing it out. This is for everybody, and the Rebbe already said it's for all times. So, what is the idea of going into the land when we're serving God day to day? We're not all farmers. We don't all have land. We don't all have, but we all serving God. We all have something to do. So, the whole idea of going into the land in our day-to-day service and every individual Israelite service, Yuvan al Yidua will understand this according to what we know. The Kshem Sheretz Yisrael b'Pashtus Nikra b'Shem Eretz Tzvi, just like the Holy Land, the land of Israel, is called the land of, which is called the land of Tzvi. Tzvi, if I tell you what is, when I say Tzvi, yeah, you mean the deer outside here. Tzvi means a deer, but there's a root of this word, and the Rebbe explains the root right here. Tzvi loshen chayfetz v'tainug, like the commentaries on Jeremiah say. It's also mentioned in Daniel. It doesn't say it here on the bottom, but in Daniel it's called the land of Tzvi. Tzvi means something that you want, something that is not only enjoy, something that is what's the word I'm looking for? Something which you want, which is desirable. Thank you, desirable and pleasurable. So the Talmud also expounds upon this in other places also. It says a deer has a very unique skin. Deer skin is very unique. It expands and it retracts, and the same thing. The Holy Land holds many people, etc., etc. There's other things, but anyway, the word here, tzvi, is an interesting word. We also have a similar word in the marriage contract, because it says that the husband wanted on his own to increase the amount of money that he's giving, that besides what's required from the Torah to give a support of his wife. You say tzvi, tzovim in delay. It's the same word, really. It comes from the same root. Now I might get someone will tell me that linguistically it's not, but if you look here, you'll think about it more. You'll see it's the same word. It's also the same as, in other words, the animal comes from this idea also. So tzvi lashon chayvetz v'tainuk. So the land of Israel, that is the idea also of something that is pleasurable, desirable. Ki kach gam Yisrael nikru Shem eretz chayvetz. So not only is the land of Israel called something which is at its tzvi, which is desirable and pleasurable, but also Israel as the people are also called the land which is desirable, you will be for me a land which is desirable. It's a verse in Malachi. So, and especially according to the Torah, the lesson taught by the Holy Baal Shem Tov on this verse, which the 18th of Elul is the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov, which is marked also in proximity to the Shabbos Parshas Tavo. And it was also given over by the Rebbe's father-in-law, the Rebbe's Rebbe, the previous Rebbe. The Rebbe says of our generation, and also printed in the way he said it, and this is a reference to Hayom Yom, and it's the Hayom Yom of the 17th of Iyar. Shekol echad ve'echad miYisrael, again, take out the highlighters. Every individual Israelite who kamei eretz chayfetz is like a desirable patch of land. Sheyesh ba oitzes chulu, which has treasures in it. Umizem move on the inyan haknisa l'eretz Yisrael yesh neva v'riskol echad ve'echad miYisrael. So the idea of entering the land of Israel we have in the way that each and every individual Israelite serves God. And just like when they went in physically into the land of Israel, they had both ways, the idea of the inheritance and the gift. We also have, now that Rebbe points out, you have the way to something which is coming automatic and something which God gives as a gift. So in terms of our service to God, we also have both of these ideas. And from this, that we have both of these ways in every individual's service to God, the way of gift and inheritance. So then the Rebbe says that you also understand that even before we start to serve, inherently, you see that word comes in here the same way because it means automatic, right? Everyone has it automatically in their existence, in the existence of each and every individual Israelite. We have the idea of what's gifted and what we inherit. The Rebbe explains. And the Rebbe, this is a theme which the Rebbe discusses throughout. Each and every individual Israelite is made up of the fusion of a soul and a body. In even more detail, that even more so the soul in and of itself, which is the primary part of this unit, like we learned in Tanya chapter 32, that the Soul is the main part, and the body is secondary to the soul. Yesh bo gam kim beis madreges. It also has these two. It has two levels. The soul has two levels. Bechinas haneshama hamislabeshes beguf. The part of the soul which is enclosed in the body, hashayechas leguf, which therefore is connected to the body, which means it is the part that is able to be fused with the body. It's pertinent to the body. It's what the body can handle. That part of godliness. Then there's a bechinas mazel shabbat neshama, neshama shabbat neshama. Then there's the part of the neshama called the mazel, the charm of the neshama, which is the soul of the soul. Shelamayla mislav shbeguf. That can't be enclosed in the body. That's part of the greater part of the soul, which is too broad and too godly, so to speak, that the body wouldn't be able to handle this. Since the soul has both these parts, the part that we have, but then it's the rest of it that we don't have within ourselves, but it's hovering, so to speak. It's still godly. Then there has to be if they're divided up like this, there has to be something which is even higher than both of them, that's able to connect them. That's even manipulating this to happen, causing this to happen. The part that will go into the body and the part that's not, and so there's even the part that's higher than that. These three levels we have within God Himself, in terms of when God made the creation of the world and broke down into going from the just God and having then a world, a creation. We have these three levels also. There's the part of godliness which is within the world and makes the world, invigorates the world with life. And that's called the part of God which fills the worlds. And then there's the level of God which is higher than being able to be enclosed into the world. The part which is called the encompassing, that encompasses the world. Surrounding the world, but it's more encompassing, hovering. And then there's the third level which connects them, which is higher than obviously both. The idea of the God, when God decides to create and then introduces the system of the chain of creation. Even though our sages of blessed memory teach us in the Talmud, just like God fills the whole world, so too the soul fills the body. And elsewhere it says it the other way in the Medrash. Just like the soul fills the body, so also the Holy One, blessed be He, fills the world. According to the explanation of Tanya, the beginning, chapter 3, the way God imbues the world are with these two levels of the way He fills the world and encompasses the world. We understand that it's that way with the soul also. You have this level that it fills the body. That's the mamale. That's the part of the soul that encloses the body. The part that is encompassing of the soul, the charm of the soul. And like at the time of creation, God says, let us make man in our image, in our form. The soul within the person is like it is above. So when God creates the world, and He has these different stages in terms of how He imbues the world, similarly it works the same way within the individual person, that it also has the stages of how much godliness can be, and has to be there to animate it, etc. And more than that, actually, it's explained in Chassidus that when it says in our image, in our form, so that is actually referring to these two levels. Just like in the supernal realms we have the two stages of form and image. Soiviv tzelem umemale demus. The encompassing one is the image, and the mamali, the filling one, is the form. Demus. Kach gam ba'adam b'neshama shabai. Similarly with the person, with the soul, which the person has. Yesh beisa b'chinas the mamali v'seiv shabai. He has both the idea of the level of that fills, that imbues him, and the level that encompasses him. Shalom with Bushaboy, the image and the form which is in him. From this it goes and it descends even more, even lower. He has a soul and a body. But higher than this is the more godly level, which is the one that manipulates and therefore connects all of these, that forms this unit. Now that it takes it to the next step, we're in the month of Elul, coming up to the new year. Vehina Yodua, the Rosh Hashanah, whose Mambri Sa'ilam B'Shleimus. Rosh Hashanah is the time that the world was created in its ultimate fashion, the complete world. Hu Melech Ha'olam, and then the Holy One, blessed be He, is the King of the world. We recognize God's dominion of creation, etc. Therefore, these three levels are in godliness, the way He imbues the world, encompasses the world, and the way He's higher than both. That's directly connected to Rosh Hashanah, because Rosh Hashanah is the time of creation. Next page, and it's also connected to our Parsha, the Parsha of Kisova, and as it's brought in the Likutei Torah of the Alter Rebbe, whose birthday is also on the 18th of Elul, that Rebbe brought from the Baal Shem Tov and from the Alter Rebbe, even though everything was a day earlier. Anyway, it was after Chayel, the Shabbos after. The Masha Kosev Parsha Zu Hayoim Hazeh Koel Rosh Hashanah. So the Likutei Torah explains that when it says, this day I give you a blessing, that is also a reference to Rosh Hashanah Kedisa B'Zoyar, like it says in the Zoyar. Now here, this is, and we also say the next week's Parsha Hayoim, which is also a reference to Rosh Hashanah. So now we have both references to Rosh Hashanah. The Hine Rosh Hashanah mitzvahs Hayoim Hi B'Shofar. Now the Rebbe speaks a little bit about Rosh Hashanah more, and he says the mitzvah, the special mitzvah of the day of Rosh Hashanah is the shofar. Vom Razal Binyan HaShofar, and the sages tell us the attractive Rosh Hashanah regarding the shofar. Imru Lefonai B'Rosh Hashanah Machir Zechrenis V'Shofris. God says that on Rosh Hashanah, I want you to recite before me verses regarding the God's kingdom, monarchy, and regarding, that's Malchus, Zechrenis, God remembering and mentioning everything, God's awareness continuously, the Shofris, and verses from the Torah about Shofar. And it's explained in the chassidic discourses, both in Likutei Torah and in several places, in subsequently from the Rebbeim. The Gimel in Yonim Demachis Chrenis v'Shofris im Keneged. Now here the Rebbe brings in these same three things that we've been discussing. These three ideas of the verses. This is of course a reference to the Musaf prayer, the way we say it now on Rosh Hashanah. So there are three blessings in the middle instead of the singular blessing that we have in all other Musafs of the year. And each one you have the 10 verses of these topics. So these three topics also correspond. They correspond to the power of God that imbues the world, that encompasses the world, and the part which is higher, which is the one that's creating in the first place. And now the Rebbe explains, the verses of the of kingship and dominion and monarchy, that corresponds to the attribute of Malchus. Memalekol Almin. Malchus is the lowest sphera, but it's known it's the sphera that encompasses and has within it all of the spheres, and it's compared to the female sphera, which it takes in, and then it also gives birth, so to speak. So it's creation, and therefore it's Memalekol Almin, fills all the worlds. Zichronis keneged zo. Now the Zichronis, the verses of God's remembering, that corresponds to the Zerampin, which is the six spheres of the emotional ones, kindness, severity, etc. And that is like the male part. So that is the encompassing within, let's say, the relationship. And Soiv Kolalmim, the Soiv Kolalmim, the Hagam Shebechin is Zo. Now the Rebbe points out that even though that the level of Zo, who Soiv Makif al Almim, Komok Veshlezi Yachasaleim, it's because the spheres are in the world too. So he says, even though it's encompassing, but they are also in relation to the world. It's once God created, they just can't imbue the world totally. So the Rebbe points out this idea that it's not totally removed. The Rebbe discusses this elsewhere also in several places, but this idea that even though this level of Zoh is considered the encompassing and the surrounding over the worlds, nevertheless it has a relationship with them. But the mere fact that it's encompassing and it's surrounding the world, so that's a relationship already. Shefres can I get Sfiris Habino? Now, the verses of Shefres, that corresponds to the intellectual sphere of Bina, understanding, which is higher than the emotional spheres. Lamailam is Save of Kalalman, which therefore it's higher than the encompassing aspect of God surrounding the world. Is that kosher? Gami Masha Shefer Umiloshan Shofar V'Tainuk. It's also connected with the fact that the word Shefer itself represents also pleasure and beauty and pleasure. Remember when there was the mother and sister of Moshe Rabbeinu. They were the midwives. One was called Shifra. Al Shem Shemesha Peres of that. It's called Shifra because she made the child feel good and look good, etc. So this also comes from the same root. That's what Shofar, from this term. So B'lashon Shofar v'tainuk bechinas atik shelamayla mizo malchus. That's the level of atik, which is higher than the levels of the emotional spheres, the male and the female, Zoh and Malchus. Atik is the level that God already decided that He's going to create, but He hasn't yet made any of these tools and capacities for creation. And then, as the in the practical sense, the decision is more to create. So that's why there's excuse me. It gives what's called the Pnimius Atik and the Chetzenius Atik. The inner part, the more outer part. These are the highest level of God, not pivoting, but going from total being unlimited, without anything, and then creating a finite world from the infinite. So that's already the level of Atik, which is higher than all of this. Hamizgal of Bina, which is then revealed in the level of Bina, because to make it practical, so Chochmah is that quintessential point. It's always together with Bina, but Bina is what gives the dimension. And that's what's able to connect it and manipulate, make it into a created world. That's why we say the lowest sphere is the one that actually forms the worlds. Formation of the worlds is something which is, by definition, something which is limited and measured and limited. And as we understand from the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, Kol Ma'asav Reishis L'Daiten Nivru, Pirush Rashi, Shalom Chvetzim Lihiboris V'Amru Hey. Everything that was created at creation was everything that got created agreed to be created. And Rashi explains, the Talmud says this, that he literally asked them, do you want to be created? And they all said yes. Since the creation was according to their will and agreement, Shel and Ivroim, everything that was created, therefore, it's automatically, since creation is limited, finite, therefore it's connected also with their limitations and measurements. In other words, they're being limited, finite creations. According to the Talmud, that it says each one was created in its own way, in its own method, color, shape, size, etc., and dimensions. And Rashi explains the each and every one, let's say the things that taste differently and look differently and are shaped differently. This is even a greater limitation because everything is unique. Everything has its own limitation, its own measurement. But the spheres, which are higher than the regular limitations, higher than measurements and limitations, therefore those 6 spheres are considered the all-encompassing and the surrounding over the worlds. But higher than that is the level of bina, which is the understanding that will make the method for this creation, the decision of creation was made, and therefore the process is done by bina, and therefore higher than all of this. This is the way it is with creation, with God. That's how it is in each and every individual Israelite. Hanal, they all three have these 3 things. Now let's talk about this. These 3 ideas that we have, each and every individual Israelite has in their serving God. Now that Rebbe brings this to practical, like I like to say, dollars and cents. What do we have to do to serve God? Our work is cut out for us. So, there's the famous verse, chapter 34 in Tehillim, Psalms. Veer away from evil, do good, pursue, seek peace. The Inyisur Mera, veering away from evil, that's the lowest level, just to negate, to abstain. That's the lowest level. Like the previous Rebbe, Rebbe's father-in-law, says about this. Very important principle here. And can bring many analogies. But regarding veering away from evil, it doesn't matter how you did it, how you got away. Just get away from it. Just don't do it. Doesn't matter what it took. Doesn't matter. And therefore, it doesn't. The main thing is to leave the darkness and you get to the light. There's an expression, we'll take it any way we get it, right? Maybe that's a baseball expression. Get the runs, right? Doesn't matter how. Doesn't matter how you didn't do it. You didn't do it. Abstained. That's it. That's the main thing. It means you decided instead of doing such and such, everyone can insert the blame because everyone is tempted to do such and such. Some people have a great temptation to tie up, like we read in the Parsha recently. You're not allowed to have the donkey and the ox together on one cart. Some people are greatly tempted to do that, right? So they decided they're going to do something else instead. But they didn't do it. They didn't do that temptation. They abstained. And there are 364 other things that God says not to do. Whatever it may be. Get it done by not doing it. And like we said in last week's Maimer and other Mamorim, that brings godliness to the world, this abstinence. So that's the lowest level. The Rebbe says, in this level, everyone is equal. Whether it's a tzaddik, the greatest person, or the lowest, doesn't matter. They all are equal. They all didn't do what you shouldn't do. Right? Doesn't matter if you're the greatest sage and you had the urge, or you're the lowest, or the biggest ignoramus, you don't know anything. You didn't do it, that's it. Everyone is the same. Because it's just not getting done. That's it. When it comes to doing, then everyone could do it at a different level. This one could have a greater intent. This one could have more devotion. This one could have more focus, etc., etc. But when it comes to not doing, everyone's the same. So the gam, somebody who's not on the highest level, he's still in a limited way of serving. Nevertheless, it's incumbent upon him that he veers away from the evil and leaves the darkness. And this is incumbent upon everybody constantly, every individual, consistently and constantly. Now, but then when it comes to doing the positive mitzvahs, because you have to do something good, this is already dependent on the person's level and their standpoint. Somebody who's on a higher level, somebody, when it comes to performing the mitzvah, they do it in a more ultimate fashion, a more complete fashion. They know more details, they know more about it, they're more focused, etc. The idea is to increase in good, to increase more and to do even more than what's the minimum. And to do more than what's limited. To do it unlimited, to be totally devoted. And basically, in a general sense, there's the negative mitzvahs and the positive mitzvahs. So that's also, again, what's imbued in the world, the lowest level, and then the next level up. And then we need Bakasholim, and then the highest. Remember that I was talking about the same three things. Higher than that is to pursue peace in HaTorah. That's the Torah. The Torah is higher than the mitzvahs, both the positive and the negative, and the level that you can perform the mitzvahs. And therefore connects them. In addition to the fact that the Torah is also a positive mitzvah, and for that matter, the Rebbe points out here something very interesting. It's also a negative mitzvah. The negative mitzvah of not learning. The positive mitzvah of Torah study, and the negative mitzvah of not learning, of not having bittul Torah, not having to not learn. But then there's another level in Torah which is higher than the plain study and pursuing study. The idea of pursuing the peace within it. Like it's explained, look at the Torah in the end of Pashas Balak, in the Maimer beginning with Matoivu, how good. And in this verse where it says, veer away from evil, do good, pursue peace. There it says explicitly, all three levels are alluded to here. The mitzvah slices, the negative commandments, the positive commandments, the Torah, which is higher than them, higher than both of them. And this corresponds to, like what we said earlier, the way God imbues the world, He encompasses the world, and the part which is higher than both of them. Now we're going to get to what we started out with, this a discussion about the idea, what's the inheritance and what's the gift. Yerusha has no interruption whatsoever. It's automatic, and there's ownership always to the item, right? The watch belonged to the person who passed on, then the one who inherited now owns the watch. Doesn't matter where it is, it has an owner the whole time. There's no interruption. And like we explained earlier in the serving God of negating evil, not doing, abstaining. Shadar gazush is this level, which is measured, has its limitations. It has to be there, and it always is there. It's incumbent upon everybody's individual service not to do those things. That's it. You don't need a special gift. It's just don't do it. That's it. This we have as an inheritance from our forefathers. Not to do it now. Doesn't mean that. So someone may ask, what happens if you slip up? That means that unfortunately we didn't take the power that we have to negate, to abstain. That's a challenge, of course. We're challenged the whole time. But the process, the idea, the knowledge, and that we have to strive, that we have from our forefathers. Why? Because we have the awareness, and therefore to build the awareness and to build the knowledge and the relationship. And that's what our service is, to be permeated with godliness. And then to veer away from all the negative things, the things that aren't good. And we focus on the fact that the soul should be the primary and the body secondary. So of course it takes work, but it's there that we have this power to tap into this. Kenal mehatanya, as we said earlier from Tanya. The Rebbe says we could also add the hini close of it. Generally speaking, the person serving God in the world is through the mitzvahs, is to refine all the matters of the world. And that is to refine the spark, so to speak, that fell from the world of Tavo. Just a brief review, we have discussed this in the past. The idea of the process of creation, there's the world of chaos, which preceded the world of organization, the world of Tavo before the world of Tikkun, which in the world of chaos there was so much godly light, but there wasn't the vessels to be able to contain it. There was nothing that and therefore it was not unsustainable, and therefore it says there was what's called shviras hakelim. The vessels broke, and the sparks flew, so to speak. This is all in a very abstract spiritual sense, but this is the example which is given, and therefore those sparks have to be elevated. But this is part of the process. It's not something that happened once and then creation happened. It's the continuous thing in the chain of creation. There's the world of Tavo, which is higher than the world of Tikkun. So through serving God, then we also inherit the light, the energy there of Tavo is very great. It just couldn't be contained. So through serving God, we could inherit some of this light. This is an inheritance. Now, here we're going to talk about how. Here, the Rebbe says something interesting here. The Esav bechinas Tavo. Esav, the twin of Jacob, is considered the level of Tavo. Chaotic. He was the firstborn. Yaakov shu Ochiv, Jacob, who was the brother, Yodesh Esinyonov, he inherited his lot, his things. Now, the Rebbe bases this on other things. Therefore, the Rebbe in his humility says, we could say, in a way, maybe it's possible to say, but like Rabbi Menachem says, not only you can take this to the bank, but you can take this to Fort Knox. The Rebbe says you could possibly say it, of course. There's a principle in a Talmudic principle that the idea of an inheritor means that he is in the place of the one who bequeaths in that spot. So it's as if they are that person. Like the Gemara says it, and the later commentaries explain. It's not like there's something that they had to go through a process in between. Like somebody appoints somebody to be their deputy, to be their emissary, to be their representative. There has to be an appointment, and they have to do it, and they have to accept it, and they have to go do it, right? And therefore somebody can then rescind the appointment, and then therefore the person is not the deputy anymore, and he's not their shliach, he's not their representative. El hayoyrish who b'mokum hamoyrish mamash. The one who inherits is in the place of the one who bequeathed, and that's it. They are that person. That's the idea of the inheritance is automatic. Ki hayoyrish nasav mokum hamoyrish. The inheritor is in the place of the one who bequeaths. Like it's explained also about the story that Jacob took the firstborn, the birthright. We know all of the story, but it really was coming to him in a certain sense because he himself was the firstborn. Everything is relative. Because he went in first, one who, right? If you stick in two peas into a straw, the one you stuck in first comes out last. So he was first. Like this parable analogy is explained in the Medrash and other places, several places. This is the idea of imbuing the world, how it's in a practical sense. Now, the inheritance is what we get automatically. So that's what fills the world. Now there's the idea of what God gives us as a gift. That's higher than that. His galus malmaila, something which God gives us a revelation from the supernal realm. Like it says in the verse that the Lord your God gives you. He says, veer away from evil and do good. The doing good is increasing good. And therefore, there could be an interruption. It is limited, etc. It goes by the one who's doing it. Even though, according to an inheritance, you get not from according to how hard you work, it's automatic. But the next level goes according to what you can toil. Like the sages tell us, if you work hard, you'll succeed, you'll get. And you'll get more, even more than you're deserving, commensurate to how much you toiled. Yes, like if you find something, it's the idea of the mitzvah. It says it doesn't say vitzlachta. You'll succeed in that sense. It says you'll find, because it has the nuance of finding something which is undeserving. You just got it. Yosem inil from Tzayda Agra. So, like the Pirkei Avos says, that according to the anguish, that's how much you get paid. But here we're saying even more than that. Kapasha simply understood, but nevertheless, it is in a measured and a limited fashion. A gift is higher than these limitations, and therefore therefore it comes from the higher level, the level of encompassing. Now, what we do with the gift, again, is dependent on the level of how much a person does it. I think that would be what the Rebbe explained, that the Savo is connected also with the world itself in that sense. But if that's the case, we have to understand the order in the verse. Since a gift is higher than an inheritance, he should have said it in the order from the less to the more, to the more heavier, from the lighter to the heavier. He should have said first the inheritance, which is automatic, which therefore doesn't matter how it is, the lowest level. It's like veering away from evil, etc. And then the gift, which is higher, which comes with the revelation, etc. Well, then why does it say which the Lord your God is giving you, meaning the gift comes first? Final page here. And afterwards it says you'll inherit it and you'll dwell and inhabit the land. But we can understand this according to the Talmudic dictum. This is, of course, everyone's familiar with this, the beginning of the Tanya. That the Gemara says that the soul, before it comes down to this world, we make it swear that it's going to be, etc., righteous and not evil. The child, when they're in embryo, when they're in utero, in their mother's womb, before they are born. Kvar oz mashbin, they say already then they make him swear by v'neisen loy koyach, but they also give him the strength shegil dagan nailas yeser, that he can reach even a higher level. Shleimus avodah tzaddik, the ultimate of serving God, of being righteous, to be an all righteous, and especially according to the explanation of the Rebbe that Tzemach Tzedek. In his work of notes and summaries of the Tanya, in the beginning of that work, Shalosh, and by the way, the Tzemach Tzedek's birthday also is in proximity to Rosh. It's on Erev Rosh Hashanah, the day before Rosh Hashanah. Shalosh and Mashbi, and they say Hugam Lashon Soiva. This term that it says we make this whole swear, but if you change the vowelation here, it could say it could be read Masbin, I say, which means we make him satiated, from the term of being satisfied and satiated. Shezeu initial severe, the idea of being sated. Loidak v'achalta elgamis avota, not just eating, but you're being satisfied. Behind the loidak ha'esher b'chinas m'didivak bola, not just the light which is in a measured and limited fashion. You get also from the light which is higher than limitation and measurement, that encompasses the world, b'chinas matana, as a gift. That's why the Rebbe says that the verse says first the idea of the gift before the inheritance, the higher level. The Rebbe says that before you even start, you are given the strength, you have it in you, you have to tap into this energy. Away from the Cholanesim by Yofanesim, and God gives it in the way that whoever gives a gift is generous. They give it with a good eye. Therefore, God gives you the possibility to reach the ultimate way in serving God, not just in a way of inheritance, but it's like a gift, something which is even higher than that. This is what that verse is, the verse that we started with. That it will be when you come to the land which the Lord your God gives you as a heritage, and you will inherit it, and you will dwell in it, and you will inhabit it. When it says it shall come to pass. Lashon Sipur v'Havtocha. When it says that when you come in, it's a story, but it's also a promise. That which it says, the term ki, it's when you come, it's like a condition. When you get there, it's talking about what comes later. That you'll bring the first fruits. When you'll come to the land, then you'll have first fruits. So it's the mitzvah to do it. It's also the promise that you're going to have it. But that you're getting into the land, that's already settled. That's already promised. That's already assured. Hainu shalakol echad ve'echad, need to take out the yellow highlighters. To each and every individual need nakeach. Everyone has the power and potential. In a way that God gives it as a gift, and He satiates you. You'll get into the land. You can get involved. You're in the game. You could really get and reach the ultimate in serving God. In a way of an inheritance, that it means it comes down to the lowest realm. You say nachla. Nachla means an inheritance or a heritage, but it comes from the same term that means a river that flows. It comes down. Nachal. Nachal Eisen, a strong river. Which means it comes down to the lowest realm, Vidishta, and then you'll inherit it. You get the limited and the measured life. And then you will inhabit it, you'll dwell in it. You get it in a settled fashion. Not just the inheritance, but also the gift which is higher than any measurement and limitation. Now the Rebbe says this again in his humility. You could also say, and also maybe it's possible to say this, which as Rabbi Menachem says, you can take it to Fort Knox. Oid Pirish was there. One more explanation. The Inyan V'Yirishta Koyel Yerusha Seres Zayin Amim Shekvar Nichvash Lifnei Zeh. The idea of and you will inherit it goes on inheriting the land of the 7 nations, which was already conquered. And remember, the 7 nations here are also the 7 Sfiras attributes within ourselves. The Rebbe says that other Mamorim. Getting that in the future to come, that'll be like an inheritance. So then what's going to be the gift? That which the Lord your God will give you as a heritage. That'll be the 3 nations that we did not yet get. The land of the 3 nations. Kaini, Knizi, Kadmeini, which corresponds to the intellectual spheres. For that you need a special gift from Milmaila, from the supernal realm. Like God says, when it'll come to pass, when God broadens your boundaries, then it'll be this special gift that God gives us that also. And that should come to pass. The Hirotzen, the Rebbe says, may be the will of God. That speedily, immediately, actually so. This idea shall be fulfilled. Maybe when you come to the land, actually, simply, literally, Haknis, Eretz Yisrael, entering the land of Israel, Hein, Eretz Shiva Umis, the land of the 7 nations. And the prophecy of when the Lord your God will broaden your boundaries. Eretz, Kaini, Knizi, Kadmeini, the land of Kaini, Knizi, and Kadmeini, which of course, we have to believe it and bring it. There are those, the ones that don't love us, they believe it, etc. And we'll get that land of Kaini, Knizi, and Kadmeini. Speaking nowadays, actually slow l'chai.